everybody. So I'm just about to go through the question and answers, and we'll see where we get to because there's quite a lot of questions here. By the look at something like 44. So a bit of a classic. I've got just as I started, I've got a couple of things going on in the background here, so that's cool. Okay, first one up is Niels. He said, just in theory, a close finish with light airs and both competitors having enough free fuel could end in a motoring finish. No, it couldn't because basically you're not allowed to motor within 250 miles of the finish. It's in the notice of race. And so that's how we stop that. Okay, next one, Quadro to Repatre. I'm not sure what that is from Giovanni. Hang on, see translation. Here we go. When does it start again? 2026 is the next edition. We haven't finished this one yet. We've got 2 boats out there. And 26 is the next edition. September, early September start again. And I'm pretty confident we're going to have a full fleet. So up to 30 boats, but let's wait and see. Darren, great job with the whole GGR admin team. Watching the interviews, it appears that the most useful weather device was the barograph. Absolutely. I'm interested in putting one on my boat. Are there any modernized versions? Well, yeah, there are. There's the usual barograph has a drum with a paper on it, and then the barograph, mechanism slides up and down, and you actually get a graphic image, a line. And you can also use it, I call it as a Geiger counter. Every time you got knocked down or on my rollover, the arm got to flexes up and down. And so you actually had a paper track of when it happened, the exact time that I've got one for the exact time of my rollover, as well as the 7 knockdowns I had going from Cape Town to Sydney. Anyway, so the modernized versions can have an electric version. You don't have to wind it up with a clock, with a key rather. And then, of course, you can get electronic ones as well, which is, okay. It just gives you a screen readout and you can go from there. But, there's a certain serenity and a certain beauty of having a wind-up mechanism, tick, 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 little drum running around. And certainly the level of information you get is quite easy to understand. You can still log it all off a barograph every hour or so, but off a barometer every hour or so. Just take a reading and log it, and then you can just draw a graph. But a barograph is really simple. You can follow it easily. So we recommend that for the GGR. And interestingly, Kirsten didn't have one. She just had a barometer, so it's all okay. Her conversation on the weather, she also got that feeling of being at one with the sea and the whole voyaging plan because of her celestial navigation, because of using paper charts, and because of using a barograph. And she felt quite comfortable with that. Yes, from a racing perspective, it's pretty good to get all this extra information, but there's a certain serenity about doing the voyage with basic instruments. Susan, hi John, just wondering why Ablis used so much fuel. Is that a normal amount? Oh, I didn't think it was that much. I forget what it was now. He had, he had an 80-hour time penalty. So he had his 25 litres plus another 40 litres of fuel. If you've got a problem with powering your batteries, you use the alternator on your engine. And, it was out for 8 months. So that's only, 8 months. It's only not much every month. So I don't think it was abnormal at all. But certainly we try and encourage wind generators, solar panels, water generators so that you use less than that. And Kirsten was the opposite end. She used 30.7 litres in total. And we estimated 25 litres she used just going to Tapio. But as she said today, she virtually hardly ever ran the engine. So, okay. So, yeah, Abelish obviously had some power issues. Also, when he came up the channel back to LSO, looks like he motored all the way in. Surely this would have added to the fuel usage despite having already crossed the finish line. Yes, that's right. I was surprised when he turned it on. But, I mean, he didn't care anyway. Goog is so far behind, it doesn't matter. Kirsten was in front of him, so it doesn't matter. He knows where he is in life and in the GTR, and he didn't really care. Nothing was going to change by using a little bit more fuel. So, yes, he did motor. In a news from Alison, in a news post, there was a link to all the skippers' individual race stats, highest 4-hour speed to 24 hours, but the link didn't work for me, and I can't find. It's cheapers. I just had it. It's gone blank. Crikey's! It's the chap in South Africa, in Cape Town. GGR. I'm getting too old. Oh no, I can't remember it myself now. Jeepers! If you hadn't asked me, I would have told you. Crikey's old. I'll get Jane will come and tell me in a minute. It's GGR Outlaw or something, Outpost or something. I can't remember now. I'll mention it in a minute. Keep watching. Cheryl, it would be really interesting to have a post-race interview with each sailor. Oh, we do that anyway. Curious to know how they're coping back with so much buzz. Oh, we don't get into that lot. What their post-race work has been with their boats and elsewhere. It's an ongoing thing there. And we always, in 2018, we did the same. When the entrants turned up, we get on their boats and have a chat and talk about what happened, what they liked, what they didn't. And then there's a few other things. When the 26th edition starts, we start doing entrant interviews, usually one a week. It's alive like this. We have two people, me and someone else, and so on, and we bring them on. You'll see some of them already on the GGR YouTube channel. You can look at Kirsten's interview, for instance, and Simon's interview, which was done years before the start. It's quite interesting to go back and watch those interviews, so far ahead of the start, and now see the end result. It's quite fun. And we'll do the same for 26. And we may go back and chat to the entrants, to find out what they're up to in life. But you'll probably see, you can follow their own social media pages and so on, and that would give you an idea as well. We'll certainly be doing some wrap-ups. We have a debrief of all the entrants on the Friday afternoon before the prize giving on the 20th. So that's the 23rd of June. It's sort of an in-house private thing. We don't talk about it. It's a full-on debrief. But between now and then, we'll be sending a questionnaire to all the entrants, and hopefully they'll come back with all the answers, and we'll try and compile that. And it'll be an interesting set of statistics about everything about the race. There's a lot of potential interesting answers there. So watch out for that in the future. Okay. Craig, thanks for the whole event, Don and co. I enjoyed Simon's post-race interview video, particularly fascinated by the boat equipment wear. Yep. Can you please keep it up with other interviews too? Yeah, we will. We're not in the business of entertainment after the GGR's finished. I often say this. We could go for 4 years, the lead up for the next 4 years, and produce all sorts of material, but it'll get a bit boring. And we've got other things we do. So you'll see there'll be always something coming up on a regular basis, but not like it is when the event's on, of course. But we keep in touch with everyone. We appreciate all the GGR fans around the world. So it'll still be a fun place to follow, and it'll get more intense as we get closer. And if there's one thing I know for sure, the 2026 GGR will be here before you all know it. I'll have a lot less hair by then, but yeah, it's coming. Joanne, I saw Kirsten just flying the last days to the finish line with the exception of the no wind zone at the finish line. Do you think she was throwing caution to the wind in the last days? Her speeds had dramatically increased in the last days. I completely agree. The week before, she was just going for it. Was she just conservative in beginning and middle of the race? I think there's a bit of that. In the beginning of the race, you're just really pacing yourself. But I know you may remember she got really down going into Lanzarote and in terms of her position, but that was some weather issues as well. Then she started to settle, and it got a bit more interesting by the time she got to Hobart. She knew where she was. She knew she was in touch. But then there's the whole issue of not stressing your boat, get around Cape Horn through the Southern Ocean, and even then the frustrations of the South Atlantic, the Doldrums and things like that. But when she was about maybe 2 weeks from the finish, I could tell, I think everyone could. She was just going for it. She just, working really hard, changing sails, but you can't keep that up all the way around the world. So, but at the finish, you've got this objective. So why not? She went for it. She still didn't know where she was, but she thought, oh, wherever she is, she can't lose. It's not a bad thing to push yourself towards the end. And the conditions were reasonable to do that as well. When you get relatively mild conditions, you determine the pressure you put on the boat, not the other way around. When conditions are really tough, like strong, you got to be careful you don't overload things. But when conditions allow you to push the boat, and that's what was happening, she did it big time. So it was quite impressive. Anders, how many of the entrants do you think rewatch the tracker updates afterwards? Do you aim them mainly for rewatch of the participants or the general audience? No, I do it for all the followers, and I do it for myself anyway. Like I want to get on there and have a look. I sneak peek like everyone at the tracker and work out, what's happening. A few times a day. because things are always interesting. But when I do the trackers, I try and impart some knowledge and tell you what I think is happening and give you my impressions. So it's really for you. But it's the funny part is I said to Kirsten as well, she can follow it all. All the entrants can go back blow by blow every day for the whole race and find out what's going on. And it'll remind them of times when they were challenged and when they were happy. And, Kirsten will be able to see Simon, the weather he had, cruising up the Atlantic. And she'll be able to see how lucky she was that she got some forecasting in Tasmania and picked up like 600 miles on Simon, coming into Hobart, things like that. So it's a good reference point for everyone, to see what's going on. And it's also an historic record as well, because we were having an interesting debate in the office the other day about a situation, and I said, "Well, go and have a look at the tracker; it's all there." And so you couldn't argue against that, And so the daily updates are quite handy for lots of reasons. Okay, and I'm sure Kirsten will go back and have some fun rewinding it. All the entrants will, and new entrants in 2026 will do the same if they're smart, So how many of the entrants do you think rewatched? Oh, we've done that. Sue, hi, Don. Did you have an interview with Ian? No, not while he's here, but we'll get something happening later on. He was actually all over the place, and it didn't work out. It's said a few times, but he wasn't up for it at the beginning and so on. And so he's still winding down, and I didn't want to put pressure on. Same with Kirsten and Abelish. They've been been working really hard. We tried to get one up on Abelish today after Kirsten, but it didn't work out. But we will in the next couple of days as well. So, and we look forward to Goog arriving. Hi, Don. Been great watching everything on here and the finishing. Could you do a few tweaks with the commentary? It would be good to read to see how much fuel was used for each boat with penalties and how much rubbish was brought back, as I know there are time penalties on this. Or there's only time penalties on the fuel, okay? And Abelish is the only one that's had a time penalty, which we've declared. Simon doesn't matter for fuel, being in Chichester, it's not relevant. And the rubbish, all the rubbish being weighed, okay? So to see if it matches up with what their estimates were in the beginning. It's part of our environmental management plan, and so we weigh everything and then see how it all comes together. And all those statistics will come up later on anyway. And when Good gets in, we'll do the same. We'll weigh his rubbish and we'll work out any fuel penalties. But because he's third on the podium and there's no others anyway, he's not going to get an advantage on abolition. So, but we still check it. We check all their seals on all their equipment. We make sure their navigation logs are pretty right, and all that. That's part of signing off on the event itself. I was very impressed with the navigation logs that we've been seeing, so that was quite interesting as well. Daniel, hi Don. I don't recall Kirsten having a knockdown and was wondering if it had to do with the low center of gravity and long but moderate draft keel. Does this design make it less likely to roll in the broach drifting or hove to? I don't think it's got anything to do with the boat design. Within reason, there might be a small percentage that's got to do with the boat design. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 15% or something. But really it comes down to the weather you've got and how you handle that boat at the time. And so it's a bit of luck of the draw. And I think that, you do influence the risk of a knockdown by how you handle a boat. Okay. You don't want to, if you leave it a hull in a big sea, you're just waiting for it to happen. It's a pretty much guaranteed thing. You're just drifting, beam onto the seas, and eventually one's going to get you. If you're towing warps, there's a little bit less of a chance of getting a knockdown maybe. And if you've got a tiny flat sail right up the front of the boat, maybe there's a little bit less chance of getting a knockdown. But the sea's the biggest influence. Like when Ian was out there, he had that incredible sea which was sort of 7-8 meters behind him, and another 2.5 meter swell coming dead in front of him, just one behind, one in front. I don't know what that would have been like, but it doesn't sound nice, and it's not very good at all. So and certainly the design, obviously, I mean, we could talk about this a lot. Tapio's was one of the least likely for rollover because he had a super heavy mast, which acts like a fulcrum to like a counterbalance to any big hit by wave. It's got to overcome the equilibrium of a very heavy mast as well. It's an interesting theory, and a very low, deep keel, with all the high ballast ratio, things like that. So it does influence, but it's not something that you would normally consider in the design for a GGR to go faster. That just comes with the territory. Once you decide on that design, they're all pretty safe within reason. Okay, Peter, Hi, Don. Will the time credits and penalties be taken into account in the tracker leaderboard? No, we don't. We don't put on the tracker leaderboard. It's just our stats, and we've already released that officially. And some people don't see all the bits, but there'll be a final summary once everyone's in. Once all the boats are in, we'll do a final summary, so you'll be able to catch up there. Many thanks for the wonderful information, particularly an interview with Simon about his boat and gear. Yeah, that was a good one. Good fun. And although the takeaway from today was Kirsten's 8-month onion that you could eat, that was kind of cool, and a tool drawer. Make sure you see part 2. The tool drawer is a real comment on what the GGR is. Anyway, hang on, we get a French one here. Too bad Simon Kern's visit to Clara isn't translated into French. Now, this is a bit hard because if you're watching this, Christian, you're not necessarily understanding what I'm saying right now. But it is entirely up to the individual watching anything on YouTube to organize their own translations and subtitles. So you can work on the settings, set your YouTube channel up to subtitles, and then go to translations. And you can translate those English subtitles, because you're listening to me, you'll have English subtitles, into any language you want, Italian, French, Spanish, you do it. And it's just there, and you can translate everything. So good luck with that. We used to put there's actually a YouTube video showing you how to do it. If you just do that on the search engine or Google it as well, Google will give you a video introduction on how to put subtitles with translations onto anything on YouTube. So thanks for that and good luck, Kathleen, Don, who is still out there? Who is not still in the race due to complications? Well, there's only 2 boats left out there. Gug, Captain Gug, Michael Guggenberg, sailing on board Nuri, a Biscay 36. Nuri is a sardine sponsor. And then there's Jeremy sailing as a Corinthian, South African entry in a OE 32 boat, and he's in Chichester class because he had barnacle problems and lack of water, so had to stop in Hobart. You can also read all the past news, press releases and newsletters on the website. It'll tell you everything that's going on. What microphone do you use to record from your phone? I'm looking for a good one to eliminate wind noise. Well, if you find one, let me know. There is an issue with iPhones. If you want to use iPhones with the microphone, you can't get a variable control suppression for an iPhone. They don't have the ability. You can't do it. Once you plug it in, and we've got the best. We've got all sorts. I think there's 8 different microphones there. And what happens is, as soon as you get a lot of residual background noise, like if you're driving in the car down the highway at 150, you don't realize it, but there's a huge amount of background noise, and you speak over that. But the intense wind noise in the car and everything's there, but you forget that when you're in the car. But the microphone doesn't think about that. It just hears all the background with the engine going and the wind and all that sort of stuff. And as soon as it gets too loud, it crackles and pops, snap, crackle, pop, and it loses all audio. You've gone over the threshold of the top. And we see it on the software program we use, and it goes up as red. We know we're redlining, but there's nothing we can do. You can't quieten it down, and that's the issue. That's why all of the iPhone mics do the same. I've watched the Ocean Race, right? These are 10 million euro campaigns in the Ocean Race, and they didn't even have as much experience as us, and they couldn't work out what was going on. This is coming into Cape Town, and Ada and I were watching it thinking, there you go. Nothing you can do about it. A 10 million euro campaign, they haven't got the best. That's what happens when you use an iPhone. So the way to eliminate that is to use a camera. And if we use a camera, we can put on a proper microphone with has all the audio controls, and we can tune it down and get rid of all that background. The wind noise, we don't get wind noise, right? In terms of the waffle, we don't get that because we use fluffs, but it's the overall level of the sound. And I'm not a sound engineer, but we've got a sound engineer guy, the volunteer guy that has offered to help us and this and the other, but we know what to do. We just got to use cameras. To use cameras, it gets very complicated because then you've got to have another Wi-Fi link and you've got to have bigger gimbals, and it's really hard. And so for now, let's hope that soon there will be some new equipment that allows us to give better audio using iPhones, because we want to use iPhones. And at the end of the day, I think everyone still sort of gets the majority of it. We try our hardest, believe me. So anyway, so I can't give you any advice on that, but there's plenty around, and just don't buy the cheapest one. We don't buy the most expensive. We buy good quality ones. in between. So just get on Amazon. You'll see there's roads and there's all sorts of ones there. Okay, Paul. Hi, Don. Some older boats have elongated topsides 37 feet, let's say, but waterline length and sail area displacement, much what they would be estimated to perform similar for the approved 36-foot boats in the race. If the goal of the boat class criteria is to have boats which have similar speeds, then why is the criteria not more flexible? Quite simply because we just say 32 feet to 36 feet. You got to draw the line. That's it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you go 36 foot 1 inch, it's too big. So you got to draw the line. So we draw the line. The same with all the criteria, but some aspects we can be flexible on, but not the key elements. So displacement, minimum displacement, 6,200 kilos, and absolute length, because otherwise, as soon as we start going over that, everyone will start, you'll get a boat with a heavy bluff bow boat that's 36 foot 6. They say, but you let that long skinny overhang boat with a little bit more in, why can you do that? And so we just get rid of all that and just say, hey, there's so many boats there. There's a lot of undiscovered boats that could fit the GGR right now that no one's using. And you'll see a couple of new designs come up, and there's one guy just found another hot boat. I can tell you that. I didn't know about it, but he's going to enter, and it could be a shake-up boat, but we'll see. So there's still opportunities there to think smart the way Kirsten did. Okay, Jeff, on marine growth, barnacles, weeds, etc., who suffered the most, and what anti-fouling did they use? Boy, that's complicated because a few suffered a lot. Obviously, Jeremy suffered. That was Coppercoat. Guy suffered. He had the same anti-fouling brand as Jean-Luc, but he didn't do the same thing. He didn't have two different types, a soft and a hard, and he didn't keep everything off the sun. And so that's just two examples. There's so many variables there. It's a subject in itself, and there's been a fantastic article written by Yachting Monthly magazine on the 2018 edition of the GGR. You can Google it. You'll find it, and explains a lot about what happened in 2018. And generally, I think a lot of the entrants just forgot to pay attention on that. Because if you're going to use the same brand name paint, why wouldn't you use the same process of the one that went? Or, a few people had trouble with Coppercoat last time, so it's inevitable that it might have trouble with Coppercoat this time. And I don't know what the answer is, but one thing's for sure, you learn every time, and there'll be a lot of the entrants will be watching closely now what happened this edition. And we'll this questionnaire that's going to the entrants, we'll get all the brand names, and we'll get the number of coats they put on, and how far away from the start they put it on, and whether they scrubbed it off, just before the start of the race, all these sorts of things. So it's a very involved case, that one. And what I've got to say is that it's completely distorted in relation to all the other normal cruising boats. All right, there's nothing wrong with Coppercoat. There might not be anything super right with it, but there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm not criticizing it when I say Coppercoat didn't work for these guys, because our guys are out for a long time, and there is definitely potentially, in my opinion, an uneducated opinion, that there's some blooms of barnacle spores south of the Canaries, before the equator or something, and you can have, say, two boats, identical anti-foulings, identical application. If one boat goes through that barnacle bloom and the other one doesn't, the one that went through it's got a problem, because the one that didn't go through it, it's not a problem. And then what happens, who knows? It's quite severe. And so I don't think you can openly criticize any brand of anti-fouling at the moment, or even go to the extent that a particular brand is better than another one just because it didn't have barnacles in the GGR. It might be that the boat didn't go through the barnacle bloom, so it's not black and white on all of this, but you can bet you can bet them, the two of them, that there will be a lot of discussion about it going forward. And I've already had another electronic type anti-fouling company come to us and say, you should be doing this, should be doing that. So let's wait and see. Hugo, hi Don. Out of the races who started, hi Don. Out of all the races you started, the Mini Globe race is the only one that limits participants to a single design. That's right, 580 class. Why not instead have a similar rule to the GGR with all kinds of boats allowed? But scaled down with long keelers between 26 and 30 feet and wonderful seaworthy boats, twister house, GGR stops for handing out them. They still do. So, yeah, no, look, they're all good ideas, just suggesting another type of event, okay? And it'd be fantastic to see that event come up, but we're not going to do it, right? We are fully satisfied with what the GGR is and how it's evolved. We're very excited about the OGR, the Ocean Globe Race, starting in September this year. I think that's going to be a fantastic event and it'll excite a lot of people. And I'm super excited about the Mini Globe Race. That's enough. If you don't believe me, ask Jane. But yeah, great idea. But it's not for the GGR. We don't need another event. How did Kirsten like her song? I mentioned that on the stage because for a minute I thought that Lenny's song, she might not have heard it before because she was at sea. And I forget exactly what she said. We were up on the stage and blah, 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 and I didn't ask her again. But Lenny actually lives at Prince Edward Island, out where they did the refit. And Kirsten spent time with them. You know, they were there. He's like the local hero songwriter performer. And I really love that song. I think it's a glamour. And so I've got a sneaky suspicion she probably either heard a draft version of that song or whatever, but I didn't ask her, so sorry I can't give you the thinger. But yeah, Lenny's a pretty impressive guy, and it's a fantastic song, and yeah, it's part of the scene of Kirsten's whole story going to Prince Edward Island, an amazing community. They're having a big party for a long range party. She's not there, but to celebrate her win. Okay. Okay, from Carolina. Kirsten, who told you were first arriving and when was it before the finish line? Okay, it's my understanding that, as you may remember, the GGR team, or certainly I couldn't get out to meet her all the way out because she was coming in and then she was drifting, starting to slow down, and we had to look after the media and bits and pieces. And one of the other boats went out, I'm not sure who, met her about, probably would have been 10 miles out maybe, and told her. And so I'm not sure of what the reaction was. I heard her comment that she was very surprised and very happy when she heard it, but I can't give you the fine detail on that one. But yeah, it would have been quite satisfying for her, that's for sure. Harvey, how many days was Kirsten in the Doldrums? I'm not sure. It depends on what you call the Doldrums, but it was probably about, I think it must have been about 6 days. But you can go back and look at the tracker for that as well. You'll see in the daily updates where she was coming through. I'd be referring to it, but it was probably about 6-7 days. Did Elliot sell second wind? I'm not sure. I don't think so. He's back in America at the moment, so someone's obviously looking after it. And the last I heard, it was in the hands of a broker. So if you want it, it's still there. That's my understanding. Jill, hi Don, really enjoying the great post-race videos posted so far. Thanks. Question: could you tell us a little more about the Cape Horners Club? I looked up on Wiki and with the pennant and so on, the Cape Horners flag, amongst other stuff, it said that it'd been mostly dissolved. That's the original historic version of the Cape Horners. Cape Horners was originally a French institution, and it was set up by the guys who were sailing under, trading under sail, you might say, going around Cape Horn. It was all the old Cape, the square rigger guys and so on. And eventually they all started to die out when they got old. That happens to everyone. We're all dying, touch wood. And so there wasn't a lot of people to carry on with it. And in actual fact, then the British came into the scene and started to suggest, why don't you allow, or we allow, sailors to come in. And the French said, not sure about that, blah, blah, blah. And there were Cape Horner associations in different parts of the world. And in fact, I can distinctly remember when I was a lot younger, going to Cape Horner's sort of meetings, get together in Adelaide, South Australia, where I was, which is my hometown. And so in the end, the British division started to be more active and started to let sailors in and so on. And then the French section pretty much faded away. And there's an interesting side story to this. They had this beautiful logo, which was, albatross and bits and pieces. And it was handed to a particular guy. And I'm pretty sure this is how the story goes. And that guy happened to have a connection up in Finland. Okay. And he was getting very old, in his 90s, and he actually then handed the responsibility of that to Tapio. So Tapio actually has got the responsibility of the original logo of the Cape Horners, I believe. And he's still holding it. He's wondering what to do with it because the British division then became very, the most active in the world, and it's sort of taken over the whole thing. So, and now it's ironic that the Cape Horners Hall of Fame has come back from the British side back to La Sable d'Olonne in France, where the Hall of Fame is now held. Okay, so it's here in Les Sables d'Olonne. So, and the idea is if you pass a certain distance, sailing in towards Cape Horn and round Cape Horn and keep sailing the other side a certain distance, then you qualify to become a Cape Horner, either as a solo sailor or as a fully crewed sailor. So all of the teams on the Ocean Globe race, they'll be sailing from Auckland to Punta del Este when they go around Cape Horn. Every one of the crew members will be able to join the Cape Horners Association. And we have a special arrangement with them, especially because Barry Pickthall, some may remember from the 2018 edition of the GGR, he was our media manager, doing all the bits. He's now our ambassador, a GGR ambassador. He's very active with promoting the Cape Horners, and he was instrumental in revitalising the statistics, especially for solo sailors and for non-stop circumnavigations and so on. And they keep all the statistics of all of those events for the people that are around in Cape Horn and the times they took and so on. So it's becoming more and more active thanks to Barry and the committee they have, and it's good to see because it's pretty much an epic achievement to get around. So the GGR connection is anyone that finishes the GGR going around Cape Horn, they get free membership for a year, and they get the Burgee and so on. That's how you see it on GGR. And they've got a website. You can follow them on the website. You might see some of their press releases and social media posts. But it's a pretty cool thing. Kurt, I was surprised to what and see and solar panels on the boats. Are they pre-1968? Well, no. The solar panels absolutely were not part of 1968. You couldn't buy commercial panels like that. You couldn't get a commercial Watt&See generator like that. You couldn't get a wind generator like that either. But there's some concessions we give to the GGR, and that's an environmental concession. It's making the most of it. We'd prefer they didn't use their engines with diesel, but you need them for safety. There's nothing that'll beat the diesel engine and a tank full of diesel to go somewhere in a hurry if you need to. There's some other things that we allow as well. We consider tools to be safety items, so we allow 12-volt battery-powered tools on the boat because it's a safety item. Yes, it keeps them going, but if you need it in a hurry, it's very handy to have. So not everything is black and white on that side of it. Terry, what's the average cost to participate in the next GGR? Well, the cost to participate in the next GGR is the entry fee, which I think is, in fact, I keep forgetting what it is. I think it's, oh, geez, I can't remember. It's like 11,000 euro or 12,000 euro, the entry fee. And then you name your price after that. You've got all your safety gear that you have to get, and that's pretty defined. You can write a list of the safety gear and put a budget on it. You've got to have certain training for yourself. You've got a survival training, medical training, so on. And you've got to take time off work if you're working, and you've got to have travel costs to get in and out of Les Sables d'Olonne a few times in this pass race for functions and so on. And then after that, it's the cost of the boat. Now, that's the trick, right? It can be really expensive, and you can pay everyone to do all of the work, and you will spend anything from, 2, 3, 400,000 euro. All right. Or you can buy a sensible boat and do all the work yourself and do the race. And then at the end of the race, you can sell the boat, and it might only cost you 20 or 30,000 euro. Right. So it's a very complicated argument, but you do not need €500,000 to do the GGR, to do everything. Get your boat set up. You do not need 400,000. You do not need 300,000. You don't even need 200,000. I'd say if I was looking at a budget, a sensible budget to do the GGR and finish the race, right, in a safe way, and do the work myself or get my mates to give me a hand, I would be very happy to get into the GGR with probably 100 to 100, probably 100. I could do it for not much over 100 grand, 100,000 euro, and then you sell the boat, and you're probably losing out. You're probably doing it for about another 30. So with your 30,000 euro budget for your boat after capital cost in and out when you buy it and sell it, using a lot of your own time, which is passion, to drive you to the start. So you're not going to be able to work for a couple of years. You've got to work on your boat and go sailing and train and all that sort of stuff. And then the entry fee and the bits and pieces and travel and accommodation costs, you're probably going to spend another 25 grand or something like that. You don't have to spend $1 million, and I defy anyone to prove me wrong, right? Because if you look at what Guy's done, he's got a very good boat. He's had some bad luck. That's the reason he's back in the situation but he's doing a great job. And if it wasn't for a bit of bad luck and a few other things, he'd be fine. And I think his total budget for the boat was way under 100 grand, way under 100 grand. Okay. So you can work it out from yourself. And that's an impressive little boat and a very impressive sailor, a really well-organized guy. No pun intended, that's a well-organized bloke. So, all these numbers that go around, yes, you can spend 300,000 if you want it, but you don't have to. You can do it cheap. I mean, I just got a GMDSS VHF radio the other day from China. It cost me about $170. It's fully approved. It's fantastic. Well, not even that in euros. Or you can go and buy an $800 one, €800 one. It's all very arbitrary. But often people ask me this question that interested in doing the race. And I just go back to them and say, look, I'm not going to tell you. Start writing a list. If you're not writing a list, I know people aren't genuine about entering the GGR, because you need to write lists to work out your budgets for a start, and budgets are easy. Write a list of everything you got to buy and estimate the cost. If you can't estimate it, get on one of the websites like SVB24 or wherever where you buy everything and put numbers beside it, or get onto eBay, because I've got a beautiful new boat and I'm trying to buy as much stuff as I can for that boat off eBay, and you get some good deals if you can find the right stuff. So yeah, I digress. It's a big answer for a short question, but thanks for that. So I'll always maintain that GGR is accessible for everyone if you really want to do it. Okay, there's a translation one here. Good evening, everyone. We'll explain the website. Okay. Judith, you have mentioned there is a list of sailing books and videos. Yes, there is. It could be found on the About section. Yes, you beat the placing there, Judith, but it is there now. If you're interested in the GGR reading list and also some videos and so on, go to the About section, and Rob told me it's up now and ready to go. And we'll slowly add to that, because I had a few people sending me emails. So why don't you put this on the list? One of them was Trekker, which is interesting because it's a great read. That was the name of my mini, which is what caused the part of the storyline for the mini globe race anyway. So it's all there now in the About section. Gregory, I'd like to see a list of provisions. So that's a challenging one, because they all have different types of provisions, but some of the entrants may list all their provisioning, but you'd have to check with their social media. So write them a question and you'll be able to do it, because we don't have a list of their provisions. You'll see, I asked Kirsten that question today, and everyone does it differently, how they do it, how they work out what provisions they need. Some have got plenty, some run out, things like that. So check with them on their social media and ask them the question. They might very well answer it. Hi, Donna, are you going to do a daily update on YouTube for the OGR2? Yes, absolutely. OGR will be, the story will be told very similar to what you've got with GGR. And there'll be some other commentators involved as well. So it's not just me. It's not a monologue from me. We've got a couple of interesting guys coming in that have entered previous Whitbread races and so on. So it'll be a lot of fun. There's more material coming off. We're getting photos and some photos from all the boats during the race, from on board via satellite, and also some videos from some boats during the race. Okay, so Philip, if organisers cancel or postpone the 2026 GGR and entrants can no longer participate, do they get a refund? Well, that's a tricky question, because it would never be cancelled. There's something very funny about this, very interesting. And how can I be so precise as to say it would never be cancelled? It's very easy. It's part of the essence of what the GGR is. I've always maintained that you can start a yacht race with a tin dinghy and a shotgun. So what's a tin dinghy? If you're an Australian, you know a tin dinghy is an aluminium runabout with an outboard and you go fishing in it, right? And a shotgun, I think everyone knows what a shotgun, you hold it up and you go bang, right? And that's how we do what we do, because that's all you need to do for a yacht race. You've got to have a start line. You give them papers to say where the start line is and where the finish line is. And when they hear bang, they go. And when they get back, they can even take their own finish time, right? And the procedures for the race is a document that they have to comply with. So it's not such a big deal. And everything after that is a bonus, right? And we never guarantee anything more than what we say we'll do as a minimum. And so we can control that. So one day, if we needed to, if everything started to go pear-shaped, it's not a problem. We'd go out there with a tin ding and a shotgun and go bang and say, see you when you get back, boys and girls, So it'll never be cancelled. There will always be a GGR, assuming we have entrants. And, that's one of the essence. And you want to know something really interesting? This is how people of that era, from my era, are probably on a similar wavelength. There's a guy called Titouan Lamazou, and I first met him in 1986 when I was chairman of the BOC Sydney Stopover. Sir Robin was chairman of the overall BOC Challenge, a single-handed race around the world. It was the second edition of that race. I was the first one to meet him out off Sydney Heads as he was finishing that leg of the BOC. There were 4 stops. And very interesting guy. Anyway, he went on to do the first Vendée Globe with a new boat, and it just arrived here. It's 30 years old, and it's a bit of a historic display. Anyway, he was being interviewed and discussions about the current Vendée Globe, and he basically looked at the organisers, and I think Yannick was there as well. I said, "Hey, you guys, what's all this stuff about? You don't need any of that stuff. You don't need the race village. You don't need all that stuff. All you need to do is get out there and run a yacht race. Go boom and get them going, and they'll come back, because it's all about the yacht race, not about the parties and the village and this, that, and the other." And he's so true. Now, having said that, I love the village and I love the parties because it makes for a great event and camaraderie and social things. So I'm not criticizing it, but that's how we work. And that's how I know that we can always start a race no matter what budgets we've got and how we do it. Right now, so that's how we know it'll always take place. If anyone pays their money for an entry fee and they don't do the race, they will not get a refund. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is we don't want anyone to apply for the race unless they're really going. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is we never give a refund because A, we use it to run the race, and B, they shouldn't have entered if there was any issue about doing the race. So, and it's very interesting the reasons people and entrants don't actually get to do the race. So here's a classic. I just noticed absolutely Gurav. There's a spot for you in 26. So, boy, good timing, Guru, I should say. Look forward to that. And I really hope you can pull it off because I can see there's some unfinished business for you there. And we'd love to see you back in 26. So, yeah, there's no refunds on any of our events. We make it very clear from day one. And so the event would never be postponed. The event could be postponed, right? Something might happen. Force majeure might happen, but believe me, we want to put it on. So it might be a 1-year delay. I doubt whether that had ever happened, but if it did, we'd whack it in as quick as we could. We wouldn't, but it will always be held no matter what. So, okay. Boy, these are long answers. Sorry about that. Okay, Bert, were pocket calculators allowed or any other calculating age, or did sailors have to rely on idiot sheets, pencil and paper? Idiot sheets and pencil and paper. There were some calculators around in 68, but we just thought, nah, it's part of the fun. And just, Kirsten really got that. And so the other entrants as well. Okay, Niger, bonjour, Don. Oh, translations, please. Cancel, boom, press the wrong one. Jeepers, I can't get to it. Yeah, it's not letting me. Oh, this might be what's going on here? Sorry, I can't get the translation. It looks like something about 24th of June. Yes, hang on, put a comment, trophies. Oh, you want to know what trophies there are? Boy, I'd have to look at the list. There's a few. Okay, so Kirsten will actually get the big one, which is a perpetual trophy, which is a model of Suhaili built by materials from the Suhaili refit. That's she gets a name on the plaque with that, and she'll get another model. Okay, and that's for the winner of the GGR. Okay, and then she'll also get what we call the First Lady Trophy, okay, given to us by a chap by the name of Marcus Blackmore, a very prominent sailor and very interesting philanthropist. He supports all sorts of things. He's sponsored me in the past in different things, a beautiful trophy. And it's for the first woman to complete the GGR, and then all the women that complete the GGR thereafter. And unfortunately, Susie didn't get to complete the 2018 edition, but Marcus had a small one made for her to actually give her for the first woman to sort of finish. And even though she didn't finish, she was the first woman to enter the GGR. So she took away the little one, and there's a big one that Kirsten will get her name on. She's the first one to actually finish the GGR. So And then there's the First Corinthian entry. There's the Spirit of the GGR Award. There's a few things. And there's a new one which we'll be announcing. It's a Communicators Award celebrating Bernard Matessier as one of the great communicators of the GGR in 1968. And to be party to that, each of the entrants who entered the race have to draw a sketch, hand-drawn sketch of an albatross, and they have to give us a handwritten paragraph on their takeaway from the GGR, what the GGR meant to them. And we'll look at those drawings and look at those paragraphs, and from that we will consider who should win this perpetual trophy, which is actually the Goyo winch. It's one of the big aluminium winches on the cabin top of Joshua, which they gave to us after the refit to turn into a perpetual trophy, which is really very impressive. And so each edition of the GGR now will be up for this Communicators Award, and they'll have a smaller part they take away as well, and so on. And then each of the finishers will get a bolt from Sue Haley. So the three finishers in the GGR will all get a frame bolt from Sue Haley that did the 68 race that Sir Robin gave to us. He gave us 50 of them, and one for each of the next 50 finishers. And there's a new one coming up. We've actually got 60 pieces of the hull plate of Joshua, and they're all done in a special housing and all this sort of stuff. And each of the in fact, we're yet to decide how this is going to work yet, so I've got to be careful what I say. But there is an opportunity for the current lot of entrants that finish, and we think it's going to be the finishers, which will probably also include Chichester class finishers, right? Rather than just being event finishers, we'll actually get these Joshua plates that go there. But anyway, that's another story. Okay, so I think that's what that means, and that's the end of the questions that I've got here, if we're correct, and I don't know how long that's taking. I'm just checking here to make sure we were on all the questions, and we were. So now I'll quickly go through these comments on the side. No sound. Jane, have you been watching this? It said no sound.
What are you talking about?
On here, comments, it says no sound.
You have sound.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's someone scamming us. I'm not sure. Okay, the last one, gaming with Pixel. Do you have
delete that because
it's just scam.
I don't know. You said, do you have a wife?
1609. So no sound. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll assume there's sound there. I'll forget about Mr. Gaming with Pixel. It's a bit of a scam. T. Anderson, what do you call two sailboats within sight of each other on the water? A race. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the deal. Tim Ding in a shotgun, because not really a race. That's the funny part. The GGR is actually, a grand adventure. There's no racing sailing rules as such. So legally and technically, we're not a race. And we've had a legal definition of the name. You can call it a race, and it's not legally a race. It's very interesting. We had a lot of discussions on that with the FFE in 2018. Sorry? I cannot hear you, Jing. So have we got sound? Okay, it's okay. Okay, so did you refer to Guy de Boer? No, I was referring to Guy Waits. Guy Waits's boat was very sensible. I know because I sold it to him on behalf of, because that was originally my boat for the 2018 GGR. I sold it to Kevin Fairbrother. He pulled out in the first edition to Lanzarote. And then I sold it to a really nice guy who put a lot of gear on it and went cruising for a couple of years. He got offered in Panama and he asked me to sell it for him. I sold it to Guy. Guy sailed it from Panama back to England, did the refit himself, did all the key elements. The boat's really well prepared. And he's... he just had to run into some bad luck with the barnacles. I mean, it was really sad because he's a top sailor as well. I'm sure you all know what Guy's done in the past. I love his background, tiny boats, little 18-foot boat, very tiny boat, 4 times across the Atlantic, and then Clipper skipper and Clipper mate. He sailed around the world before. And anyway, he's doing a great job. He'll complete his solo circumnavigation and he's on his way back to Les Sables now. Okay, so then On the gun. The gun drew your emotion to the flags when I was racing. Okay. Did you refer to Guy Waits' boat? Can you talk about what tables Sail are using for thing? Okay. I actually don't know. Most of them are using marine tables. Some may be using aviation tables, which are a bit faster and a bit simpler. But most of them carry the big books. You get 15, or you get a certain number of degrees of latitude for each manual, and then you combine that with your celestial fix and so on, and use plotting sheets and so on. So it's all pretty organised. Did Kirsten win without a barograph? Yes, she did. Pure Bunny, only me, the facts, only me. Hi, GGR. Kathleen, Waveland, Mississippi gang, can't keep up with you today. Oh, sorry, I'm talking a bit fast again. You can always tell when I get involved with a question or answer and I go a bit fast. Sorry. Okay.